Hey there, Icarus here, and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time round, I've got a very visually interesting mod for you. This is Defy the... Let me try this a few times. It's a weird word. Omphalos. Omphalos? The Omphalos. The heck is an Omphalos? It is... Let me just get up the wiki here. A word of ancient Greek origin that means navel. It doesn't help me much, but more generally, it refers to the Omphalos of Delphi, a ancient religious stone artifact that was believed to allow direct communications with the gods. What does that have to do with the mod? Well, I'm not sure. But I can tell you this collection of maps, authored by Agent JR, Crash, and Anotak respectively, do share more than a little visual DNA with a very notable entry in Doom modding history, that being Lilith. Wait, what's that? Anotak did Lilith? Well, that certainly explains a few things. So first out of this trifecta is Late Arrival by Agent JR, which actually starts off in a more unassuming manner, which you'll have seen in the intro, before kicking you out into the streets and finding that your particular city block is now hovering somewhere above this strange skybox void. And this is where the visuals of it start to creep in. You'll notice the ghosting around the edges of a lot of stuff. It's subtle, but it's enough for you to know it's there. And then the second thing that you'll notice is part of the Doom soundtrack only slowed down into this trudgy, almost down-tuned version of itself playing in the background. As for the gameplay, the combat seems pretty standard to begin with. You'll notice a few aberrations, such as these strange variations on Lost Souls. You'll notice that the environment is somewhat prone to a bleeding flesh wall issue, though if you're not careful, it is entirely possible to initially miss this yellow keycard perched at the top of this elevator here, which you can't access from the bottom end, but you can access from the top. This will speed you to the back areas of what feels like, I don't know, a school? The lockers feel American high school. These rooms, I imagine, are somewhat classroom-esque, but it's not like that really matters all that much, because as you might imagine, reality starts kind of breaking down. But if there's anything true to this style of mod, it's the maxim that things can always get stranger, and here they most assuredly do. Once you pick up that red keycard, it'll grant you access to something I can only describe as the Fire Blue Flesh Hall, leading you swiftly onto a yet more messed up version of the place you just came from. And it's down here that you'll truly begin to appreciate just the sheer effort that's gone into making so many elements of this feel wrong. In particular, there's glitched out variants of several enemies down here that will assuredly wrong-foot you. Baron in particular always throws me off, firstly for its speed, and secondly for the fact that it doesn't throw projectiles at you, it throws a straight-up hit-scan shotgun blast. Soon enough, however, you'll find yourself looping through these seemingly endless, twisting Netherrealm corridors where a recurring motif begins to reveal itself, that in the form of a malevolent eye. It's probably worth mentioning what happens when you kick the bucket during the course of these maps too, because things get, they get a little psychedelic. But fear not, the seemingly endless spiral of madness does eventually kick you back out into areas slightly more sensical. And in that regard, I have to honestly give the map credit for not feeling like an endless sequence of non-sequiturs. There's logic here, albeit dream logic, and more specifically, a sense that you're actually going somewhere. Speaking of which, you should absolutely go down this corridor here, because otherwise you'll miss out on a big old BFG. It does require a few baffling switch presses. I'm still not entirely sure how I got this to work, but hey, free BFG. If you want to tool yourself up even further, it's worth keeping an eye on the area you just came from, because these will rise, enabling you to access the invulnerability sphere. It's not that the following area is all that particularly taxing, mind you, but it sure as heck goes a lot swifter when you've got 40 rounds per shot coursing into demons' faces. If anything, it's more worth saving your plasma for the more significant confrontation that follows this, what with a spider mastermind lurking in this central arena. As it happens, though, it wasn't the edibles that spurned this trip, it was, in fact, the spider mastermind, and upon death you can return through a teleporter and ascend back up another layer of reality to the one you came from previously. It's still not great, it's still kind of effed up, but at least you can leave. Next up, we have Collapsing Society by Crash, and as the name implies, it does a lot with falling masonry. This one stays a little bit more definably in the realm of a recognizable urban environment, but that's not to say that this map still doesn't do plenty with those glitched out textures that are a helpful reminder of things being somewhat off. Once again, you can hear the twisted soundtrack playing in the background, which is halfway between a drunk bassist and a piano falling down a flight of stairs. And as for this opening section of map, it'll have you looping through this subterranean environment of flooded subways and service tunnels, with the neat addition that occasionally you can blow up a bunch of barrels and actually open up a hole in the wall. Feels very reminiscent of build engine shenanigans, but it's always a pleasure to see it done here in Doom. Anyways, after a bit of poking around and a close encounter with an archvile, you'll find yourself once more face to face with one of these destructible pillars. Again, these pretty much form the backbone of what this map is doing, and blowing it up will allow you access to the yellow keycard. The yellow keycard will grant you access to the security shutters, and that will lead you out into the streets. It's a lovely neighborhood. I mean, you got the Temple of Barons just over the road, and that tower over there, it's absolutely infested with cyber demons. Delightful place to live. But in case you were wondering, yes, they do all wake up as soon as you shoot anything, and going in here was not a good move. Mercifully, however, I spied an escape route through the window, and further up the staircase here I spotted what could possibly be my salvation. Imagine my disappointment then when the first pillar didn't really do anything, but guess what? There's a second pillar, and that one... Oh, seriously though, the layout of this area is straight up ingenious. Not only did destroying those pillars help me wipe out a whole bunch of those problematic barons, but it also gives me access to upper levels of the building. And after playing Punch-Out with a bunch of revenants, only my fist is replaced with an SSG, I finally had a clear route to go pick up that red keycard. The red keycard gets you access to an adjacent ruined building, and this one is a little bit more exposed to the Cyber Demon Tower side, so you gotta be slightly wary of the odd rogue rocket coming in from the side. Reaching the top and hopping through this gap will grant you access to another destructible pillar, and this in turn will drop the floor, grant you access to another building, which houses the blue keycard. But yeah, don't take it easy just yet. Those rockets, still a threat. Using the blue keycard will get you back into the lobby here, where you can clean up the rest of the enemies should you so choose, but otherwise it's back into the street, through this other blue door, and into the plaza housing the Cyber Demon Tower. Now, as you might imagine, trying to deal with the Cyber Demons littering this thing piecemeal is probably going to take a good long while, and let's face it, probably don't have the firepower to actually do that. Instead, what we're going to do here is apply the gimmick that the level has been playing with all along, and find these structural weak points handily surrounded by explosive barrels, and take them down. Reaching them, however, is no trivial task. The long and short of it is you're going to have to visit at least 3 adjacent buildings here, ascend and find your way through till you get a good enough vantage point to blow the barrels. I'd say that the trixiest aspect of this section by far is having to wait for these elevators to either descend or ascend, all the while being in full view of some very angry cyber demons. From what I can tell though, there's no set order in which you have to destroy these pillars. It's up to you which way you choose to tackle it. And the opposite side of this plaza will gain you access to what I can only describe as something halfway between a lava pit and a swanky demon hotel. Either way, a bit of a pain in the ass to get through, but that said, it makes the victory all the sweeter when you finally hit that last pillar and finally get to witness those pesky cyber demons getting crushed beneath the rubble. Suffice to say, really enjoyed this one. Thought that central gimmick running throughout was very well applied. My only bugbear is that once the tower comes down, you got all of these BFGs. I was hoping to use them against something more substantial, but at the very least, you can use them for a bit of mop-up. After that, the exit teleporter is conveniently in the rubble of the tower you just destroyed, and then it's on to the next. Finally, we have Outside by Anotak. This one is much smaller in terms of scale in comparison to Collapsing Society, but certainly dials it up in terms of intensity. If anything, it feels like this one is intended to disorientate at first blush. A number of my initial attempts to get through it met with overwhelming odds and just not quite enough firepower to deal with the enemies at hand. As it happened, that was all on me. There's a switch right here in the opening room, which, if you flick, will grant you access to the actual intended route throughout the course of this level. But yet, the intensity remains high throughout, and in concert with that just ever-present noise of enemies and moving platforms and that disjointed soundtrack running in the background, it feels like the distillation of a panic attack in the form of a level. If anything, I'm thankful that I chose to play through these on Hurt Me Plenty, because, man, I can only imagine how I'd feel if I was playing these on Ultraviolence. One thing I really do appreciate about this map, however, is just how tightly designed it actually is. It's hard to kind of parse it through the visuals of the level itself, but when you really understand the structure of it, the flow between each individual section here is actually really smoothly done. It's just that it's not the kind of map where you get to, stop and smell the roses. Near enough every room is a fresh setup of enemies harassing you on the ground, while there's elevated enemies threatening you with the prospect of projectiles. I will freely admit, though, there's a tremendous sense of catharsis being able to return to this previously troublesome area full of imps with a fresh rocket launcher and a full complement of rockets. Something worth noticing, though, is not all of them stay dead. Occasionally you will hear that fleshy resurrection noise, and I don't know about you, but that always puts me on high alert for an imminent archvile. But honestly, I couldn't quite tell. Was it an archvile, or was it just this map trying to screw with me? On brand either way. Heading on through the red door at the bottom of this section will lead you on what feels like a bit of a meander. This fight between a handful of cacodemons and a plinth full of hell knights leads on through this curved section to another room with a fair amount of enemies teleporting in, all the while being harassed by these mancubi. You could almost be forgiven at this point for wondering whether the level is starting to lose the tightness of its design, because this feels like a bit of a meander, but once you actually get through this, you realize that it's ultimately been leading you straight back to a more familiar, previously visited section. And it's that click of recognition that makes you go, oh, I see what you're doing here. Probably doesn't hurt either that the entire purpose of that little excursion was in service of getting yourself the blue key card. Inevitably, this leads on to the final section of the map, worming your way through these corrupted-feeling streets where, despite the name of the map being outside, you never really ever see a skybox. Instead, it's a strange collection of warped, glitched-out textures, even the buildings themselves beginning to follow in a similar visual suit, almost giving the sensation that everything's just melting. But somewhat abruptly, after a minor bit of additional fighting here, the level ends. There's the exit. And in all honesty, I found myself feeling as if I'd missed something. But no, that was it. I even had a little bit of a poke around after the fact with ID Behold and No Clip, and no surprises. But if anything, that just lent to the uncanniness of the entire thing for me. Like I was playing something that was never actually intended to be played. Well, there you go. A full journey through the 3 maps available here in Defy The Omphalos. Out of the 3, I'd still maintain that Collapsing Society is a standout favorite, and taken as a whole, this still maintains a delightfully unsettling vibe. As I said earlier, there's definitely hints of that Lilith DNA running through the design here, and if anything, I wouldn't mind seeing it get weirder. Stranger, glitched-out versions of monsters, maybe even stranger, glitched-out versions of weapons. But hey, that might be something for another time. Until then, if you're interested in playing Defy The Omphalos for yourself, you'll find the link, as usual, in the description below. If you like what I do and you'd like to help support the channel, I offer memberships via Patreon or even right here on YouTube for the low price of $1. That said, I know times are tough, so don't worry. If you can't part with $1, at least feel free to leave a like and a comment. Maybe subscribe. But until next time, this has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.